What I'm about to show you is something few people have seen. It may not look like much, but to a male kakapo, this patch of ground is prime real estate. Meet Bill. He's not your average parrot. He can't fly, he only comes out at night, and he's utterly obsessed with sex. This is his mating arena. From here, he tries his best to attract a mate by singing a bizarre ballad. He repeats his song 10,000 times every night for 3 months. Bill's performance is impressive, but it's not achieving all it should. In 25 years, hardly any of his offspring have survived. They've fallen victim to a deadly curse. It's a curse that today threatens the existence of Bill's entire species. The last breeding population of Kakapo is marooned on a single island. But even here they're at risk. Not from predators, but from themselves. If you want to find a kakapo, there's only one place to go. For me, that's a 24-hour flight from Scotland to New Zealand, 4 hours from Auckland to Invercargill, and 1 hour from Invercargill to Codfish Island. The trouble is, the island below isn't Codfish Island. Strong winds have forced the pilot to divert to an airstrip on neighbouring Stewart Island. If you're wondering where the airstrip is, you're looking at it. Ron Moorhouse, a scientist with the Kakapo recovery team, takes it all in his stride. He's used to rough landings. High winds mean he'll need to transfer into something more versatile for the last leg of his journey. Access to the Kakapo's home is strictly controlled. People are not welcome, and I've only been given permission to make this film on the proviso it's just me and a camera. It's a level of security normally associated with royalty, but there's good reason for it. If kept safe, Kakapo can live for a very long time.
The Kakapo is probably one of the longest lived of all birds, and we estimate a lifespan for Kakapo of an average of 90 years, but the upper confidence limit, as we call it on that, is 120 years.
Ron is one of only a handful of people authorised to travel to Codfish. For him, this is just a commute to the office. But what an office. Windswept and weather-beaten, it lies 3 kilometres off the west coast of Stewart Island. The Kakapo recovery team have spent over 20 years making this island a perfect refuge for Kakapo. And today, it's home to the world's only breeding population. 38 males and 21 adult females. Since daybreak, the island's Kakapo have been hiding from a giant eagle. No one's told them it's been extinct for hundreds of years. Their perfect camouflage makes them almost impossible to see, but they do leave clues to their whereabouts. On the hilltop, a track leads to a shallow scrape, about the size of a fruit bowl, and it's surrounded by pruned vegetation. However, Ron and the team track Kakapo using their digital footprints. This box is a radio receiver and data logger that records the movements of any Kakapo within range. Each bird on the island carries a tiny transmitter on its back. Even so, they're still tricky to find. Ron is trying to pinpoint the transmitter signal from a bird called Bill. How close would you say he was, Ron?
I'd say he's now about probably within 15 metres. 15 metres. Yeah.
Kakapo are often a lot closer than you think. Bill's seriously unimpressed by the less than royal treatment, but it's for his own good. He may look healthy, but he has a serious problem that threatens the future of his species. However, before we can understand what's happening here, we need to know more about the Kakapo's unnatural history. There was once a land in the South Pacific where birds reigned supreme. New Zealand was an isolated archipelago, completely free from predatory mammals. The only real danger came from eagles and falcons. becoming flightless and nocturnal was a stroke of evolutionary genius that helped them avoid being eaten and led them to become one of the commonest birds in New Zealand. But 800 years ago, their world changed forever. Humans arrived. The Maori named the big green bird Kakapo, or night parrot. And for hundreds of years they used it to feed, clothe, and decorate the people. Many native birds struggled to survive. When Europeans arrived, instead of finding favour in this new land, they sought to change it still further. Forest became pasture, farmers became rich, and Kakapo became rare. But worse was to come, and it began with the introduction of the rabbit.
The rabbit became an agricultural pest. They competed with sheep for pasture, and that created great pressure from the farming community to import some kind of control for rabbits. The biological controls that people decided to bring in were ferrets, weasels and stoats. And the last of these has proven to be the death knell for Kakapo. They're a very efficient predator, and they seem to much prefer to prey on native bird species than on rabbits. I often think of it as a brown tide of predators, a tsunami if you like, sweeping across the lowlands. And it forced Kakapo right up onto the highest mountaintops.
The carnivorous tide swept across the country. Fiordland's rugged mountains became the Kakapo's last refuge. Even here, they had nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. But at last, they found a friend. Richard Henry was a visionary. As curator and caretaker of the world's first island sanctuary, he knew the only way to save the Kakapo was to hide them from stoats. He spent 12 years living in Fiordland, carrying out the first program of systematic bird transfers anywhere in the world. In appalling conditions of extreme isolation, he relocated 572 Kakapo onto islands in the fjords. But like everyone before him, he'd underestimated his enemy. Hungry stoats could swim more than a kilometre. They invaded Henry's islands.
All his years of hard work transferring Kakapo from the mainland to this supposedly safe sanctuary had been for nothing.
All Richard Henry's Kakapo died. Despite this tragic ending, Richard Henry had sown the seed for conservation in New Zealand. But it was another 70 years before anyone followed it up. There was a time when the Kakapo was missing, presumed extinct. It had been years since a bird had been seen in Fiordland, but not everybody had given up hope.
The Kakapo program as a whole had been on a downer for quite a few years. No sign, just an odd dropping here and there. And nobody knew anything, so we went in there feeling as though if only we could find something, it would be fabulous.
These photos show the strange tracks they discovered.
We were pretty well on our hands and knees trying to find out what were making these little tracks. And then lo and behold, we came across this asphallah that had been chewed. We had something that gave a great indication that Kakapo was still there.
Ron's report inspired his boss, Don Merton, to return to the area. And it wasn't long before Don got the result he was after.
My first encounter with a Kakapo was actually a wild Kakapo. It was in the Esperance Valley back in 1974. He came right up to me, circled me at about a metre or two, and then he climbed up a branch just behind me, and I could see him silhouetted against the sky, and that was a great thrill.
It was a male. Perhaps his mate was nearby. Don played back the kakapo's call. And to his delight, he got a reply. The team now had 2 kakapo, both males. They needed to find a female.
We found out very quickly that the chances of finding kakapo were in the most remote places and the steepest terrain. We had to live with these animals in their habitat.
Further up the valley, the team discovered another network of tracks, connecting a series of shallow bowls dug in the ground. The strange depressions were a mystery, like everything else associated with the bizarre parrot. Using highly trained tracking dogs, the team soon found another kakapo, but it was yet another male. They called this one Richard Henry, after the pioneer of kakapo conservation. But Richard Henry was all alone, and Ron and Don were getting worried. Without a female, the species was doomed.
In early 1975, we went into the Sinbad Valley. As we went up these ridges, you could see these sort of hollows made by something. I realised that these were kakapo bowls. I remember counting them, and there was something like about 55 or 58, you know. And we didn't know the significance of them, even if they were old or new very much at the time. But it was really exciting because obviously something was using some of them.
So the team set up a stakeout.
Someone would sit in this little hide all night long, couldn't get back to base because it was too far. Very, very cramped, very uncomfortable, and often very, very cold. And after a little while, this bird clearly knew we were there, and he interacted with us.
I went over to its bowl and quietly tried to dig out the bottom of its bowl, and suddenly this bird rushed at me and attacked, and I stepped aside, and the bird went over a 10-foot drop, and I thought I'd killed my first kakapo, but it was back within a few seconds.
With its sharp claws, it would climb up our legs. Very painful experience. It didn't seem to be intending to hurt us, but it was intent on trying to mate with our heads.
They were all sex-starved males.
Previous to this, people had thought that the bowls the birds made were for dust bathing, like sparrows do on the side of the road. It suddenly hit us between the eyes that this was all about courtship.
Every night, the team watched in amazement. The males used the bowls to put on a show. But it became obvious no females were listening, and the winter was coming.
The kakapo was clearly on the way out. It was on its last legs in Fiordland. We had to do something.
Don's plan was to catch all the surviving males and keep them safe in an enclosure until they could be moved onto predator-free offshore islands. The original Richard Henry would have been proud, but the National Park Board was resistant. They thought the birds were better where they were. Don was only given permission to transfer 5 kakapo from Fiordland. Richard Henry was one of the lucky ones. Despite the team's best efforts, the all-male population meant the kakapo was on a one-way trip to extinction.
We weren't able to find females at all, in spite of searching and searching and searching. All the wild birds had died.
It looked like Don and the team were too late. But their luck was about to change. Returning from a trip deep into the wilderness of Stewart Island, a hunter reported an encounter with an unusual parrot. When the team and a camera crew arrived, they soon discovered some telltale tracks. This could only be Kakapo. Within a week, they found more males, but it took 4 years to find what they were really after.
One here, David. Where? Got it. None on that one. None on that one. None on that one. None on that one.
None
Right.
of it.
Female.
They were the first people to see a female kakapo in almost 100 years. But better news would follow. Buried beneath a flax bush, they found a miracle. It was a nest, and inside the nest was a chick. The team had found a breeding population.
Well, it was all extremely exciting in those days. We were privileged to be taking part in what was to become a bit of a pioneering episode in conservation.
This was the break they needed. Now they could save the species. 150 birds had survived on an island free from stoats, weasels and ferrets. But they soon encountered another problem. By 1981, the transmitter signal from radio tag Kakapo was frequently leading researchers to nothing more than a skeleton. Feral cats had developed a taste for the night parrot.
We needed to help this bird. It was in dire straits, and by backing off was not going to help it at all.
The surviving Kakapo were evacuated onto remote offshore islands. They'd finally won the battle against predators, but Stewart Island's Kakapo had other problems. When I began making this documentary, there was still just one breeding population entrenched on Codfish Island. It's basically Stewart Island in miniature, so the Kakapo probably feel quite at home. Bill is one of the birds rescued from Stewart Island. He's settled in well, and over the years has become one of the team's favourites. Bill's very popular with female Kakapo, but most of the 18 eggs he's fathered have failed to hatch, and only 4 chicks have survived. It's a problem all too common in Stewart Island Kakapo, and Ron is keen to find the reason behind it. He sent the blood samples to geneticist Bruce Robertson. His reading of extracted DNA sequences revealed the Stewart Island Kakapo had a nasty secret.
If you have a mainland population of a species and you have an island population, the island population is always going to have lower levels of genetic diversity. And that's simply because there are fewer individuals in the population. They eventually have to mate with their relatives. It's been found in species that have a lot of inbreedings that you get a lot of effects occurring which are broadly termed inbreeding depression. And they can be anything from eggs not hatching, when chicks do hatch, they don't grow properly. This is a characteristic of species that have low numbers and hence are mating with their relatives.
But the DNA analysis also revealed a glimmer of hope. Richard Henry, now the sole surviving Kakapo rescued from Fiordland, carries genes from the mainland population. He's only mated once in 25 years, but in 1998 he fathered 3 healthy chicks that grew into 3 healthy adults, with no sign of inbreeding abnormalities. It seemed to confirm the theory that higher levels of genetic diversity mean better fertility. But what does this mean for our Kakapo? Bill may have the best songs and the best territory, but his low level of genetic diversity means he's a poor match for almost all the breeding females. No wonder so many of his offspring have perished. It's better news for Bill's next-door neighbour. Ox, another Stewart Island male, isn't that popular with the ladies, but the DNA analysis shows that, on paper at least, he's a better match than Bill for many female kakapo. But the bird with some of the best-looking DNA is Sinbad. Sinbad's young doesn't have the best territory and has never actually been with a girl. But he is the son of Richard Henry, and his rich genetic makeup means he's a very special bird. It's absolutely essential that Sinbad reproduces. Somehow, the team will need to reverse the natural order. But it won't be easy. To the females on the island, Bill is a god. Ox is a hunk. And Sinbad is a loser. The recovery team hope that Sinbad will soon develop the kakapo's formidable sex drive. It's an urge so strong that it's almost impossible to control. So powerful that in the absence of a female kakapo, desperate males will grab anything they can, even seabirds. Often with fatal enthusiasm. Strange as it may seem, the kakapo's insatiable sex drive gave the team an idea.
We have been trying literally for over a decade to obtain semen from kakapo, and some of our early attempts, I must admit, are by our present standards quite laughable.
One of those early attempts was called Chloe. Her mission, to seduce a male and collect his semen. But as this old footage shows, she wasn't the pin-up girl the team had been hoping for.
Needless to say, he wasn't interested at all, and in fact was probably more horrified than anything else. So.
Getting desperate, they turned to something less romantic. Males were anaesthetised and then electrically stimulated. The trials were a partial success, but deemed too risky to be used on such precious animals. They had to find a gentle way to extract sperm. In 2006, after an exhaustive worldwide search, Ron found someone that thought he could help. The team wasted no time getting him to Codfish Island. Juan Blanco is a Spanish vet with a remarkable skill. He's an avian artificial insemination expert. His usual patients are Spanish eagles, but he's confident his polite approach will work with the kakapo.
First, kind of ask for permission to the kakapos, and we'll see what they say. But the first step is just ask if we can do that, and if they're okay with that, we'll go ahead and do our best. That's my feeling.
Juan has never worked with parrots, let alone critically endangered kakapo, so there's no guarantee his technique will be successful. You see, Juan is a kind of bird whisperer. He thinks he can collect sperm using massage. To everyone's astonishment, it seems to work.
I'm sorry, I'm so excited because for me it's like if I was visiting the moon. It's the first time I see Kakapo sperm, and for me it's completely different too. Wow, there's one with two heads here. Shit. I've seen quite a bit. Most of them were abnormal, but this one is
Crazy.
it's not good.
We've seen sperm with 2 heads. We've seen sperm with 2 tails. We have real problems with hatching success in Kakapo, and we suspect that sperm quality has something to do with that.
Juan has seen nothing like it before, but were all the birds this bad? Was indeed a master masseur, and his technique seems to be a safe and mostly painless method for extracting semen. However, the males need to be in reasonable breeding condition for the technique to work. Although Bill is in reasonable condition, his sperm isn't. Sadly, Sinbad's result isn't much better.
Sinbad, again, not in prime booming condition, certainly in reasonable condition for a male, for a non-booming male, but not corpulent and fat the way that the male in prime booming condition is.
What can you see in that sample?
There's nothing much at all.
Sinbad's still too young.
26, that's why I remember.
But there are a few surprises. Ox is in reasonable condition and has better genetic diversity than most of the other Stewart Island males.
Yeah, we got semen first time.
Hooray!
Yeah. And it's very important to press the cloaca, but in the upper part. Yeah, we're gonna get the whole capillary tube, but clean sperm, hopefully. Yeah, huge amount. The concentration is very high. Wow, this guy is high quality guy.
Even though Ox and a handful of other males are in good condition, 2006 doesn't develop into a breeding season. Female Kakapo are very picky and don't mate every year. Although artificial insemination now seems possible, it'll have to wait. Ron's still pleased with the outcome.
I believe we've taken a great step forward. We've found that we can obtain semen from male Kakapo without anaesthesia. We've found that we can maintain that semen alive in vitro for up to 48 hours. And we've also found that we can freeze it in liquid nitrogen and have 80%, up to 80% survival after it thaws out. So these are not small things, these are big things. And yeah, we're very excited about the future. We're starting to move beyond conserving just individual animals. We're trying to conserve the genetic potential of Kakapo. Basically, we're trying to conserve as much of the genetic diversity of the species as we can.
Juan will return for the next breeding season on Codfish Island. Hopefully then Sinbad will produce the goods. If only they had more birds with the rich genetic makeup of the mainland population. As Juan made his way back to Spain, the team set off to Fiordland. Fiordland lies in the southwest corner of the New Zealand mainland. It's one of the Earth's most dramatic landscapes. It was here that Captain Cook first set foot in New Zealand, and it was here that Richard Henry had tried to establish the world's first island sanctuary. Today, the only people that visit Fiordland are tourists and hunters. Most of them have never heard of a kakapo. So when a hunter reported seeing a large green flightless parrot, you can imagine the fuss it caused. Where in this day and age do you find someone with the qualifications to track a Fiordland kakapo?
Here we go. Which way?
Ben.
House on the right, you go around.
On the right.
All right, at the end of the hills.
G'day.
Who are you?
Yeah, who are you? Good to see you.
Jeez, I haven't seen you for how long?
Yeah.
80s, late 80s. You can still stand up. That's a stroke.
Absolutely. What I'm looking forward to most in Fiordland is going into new areas and searching these horrible places where I think there's a possibility of birds. Just the feeling that we just might find another one or two.
Within minutes of landing, they find parrots. Not Kakapo, but Kia, New Zealand's mountain parrot.
The hunter saw what he thought was a kakapo in the valley floor of the Genie burn, and the Kakapo team are now surrounding the head of the Genie burn, hoping to hear a booming kakapo.
Spread far across the valley, the search team have split into pairs. Ron is with Phil, a young Kakapo ranger.
Well, it's 11 o'clock, and if there are any kakapo, they should be starting about now.
But the first night is cold, damp, and quiet. At first light, the teams are out and about looking for sign, and it's not long before there's news.
We heard from one of the camps that they had picked up some unusual feeding site on Dracophyllum heads, and it's possible that this could well be Kakapo. So it's really exciting news because it's the best we've had so far. We're going to investigate it and see where we go from here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I found. Yeah, that looks good. But
Certainly Kakapo do that exactly like that, but it's also likely that somebody else does it, and it's inconclusive at the moment, and we've got to make it conclusive. It's not actually eaten, some good lines in it.
Okay, 3 species here, which Kakapo used to use in Fiordland. They would take this old area species and chew it up and spit it out, so you'd find little crescent-shaped chews on here. They'd take this Dracophyllum and eat the centre out of it, and chew that. And the third one that just happens to be here is the mountain flax, and they take the pith out of here, so you get big scallops taken out of here, and so that's pretty well Kakapo sign and very little else.
Don's nearby hunting for Kakapo feathers. They should smell like the inside of an old violin case.
Doesn't smell like Kakapo. I saw an stevia fruit stem chew.
That's right, yeah.
And but nothing sort of classic Kakapo.
Well, I went looking for their ice cream cards spread up here, like flag stalks and things like that.
Yeah, no, I made a list of also things that should have been that were, flax pods, not eaten. They should have been. Tussock seed, no feeding sign. Oriobolus seed, no sign.
All the evidence points to a playful Kia, not a hungry Kakapo. Undeterred, Ron and Phil head deeper and deeper into the wilderness. They know how important it is to find another Fiordland bird. It would be a priceless addition to the Kakapo gene pool and may just help cure the curse. For 2 weeks, they endure foul weather. Ferocious sandflies and freezing nights. For Ron, it's a chance to relive many old memories.
A lot of history here. All the walls have got writing on them. I've got to get my glasses before I can see. This is a visitor's hut book. I visited it first, 23rd of March 1974. A few people have slept in this hut.
In the 70s, 4 male Kakapo lived on the hills around the hut. 2 of them were left behind. Could one of them still be here? It is a flightless bird, but a kiwi, not a kakapo. The search is over.
You know, when we came here in the 1970s, we were probably looking at birds that were 50 to 100 years old. Yeah, this is the year 2006. So if those birds were still alive, you know, we'd be looking for birds that are over 100 years of age, you know, 130 to 150. The chances of that are just not too good, really.
– 2007 wasn't a breeding season, and everyone's pinning their hopes on 2008. A patch of feathers will indicate the breeding season has begun, but exactly what leads to this patch of feathers is still a mystery. Kakapo mating has never been seen. Several males on the island are in breeding condition, but this isn't one of them. It's Richard Henry, the last Fiordland kakapo. It's incredible to think that this bird is still alive and well, although he's one of the few birds not in breeding condition. It's a shame, given his priceless DNA, but it's not that surprising. He could, after all, be well over 100 years old. Luckily, Richard Henry's genetic legacy has been passed on to his son, Sinbad. And the great news for the Kakapo recovery team is that Sinbad appears ready for action. The competition's hotting up, and Bill warns the other males to keep away. But Sinbad's not backing down. He spent the last few years listening to Bill, and he's rapidly gaining confidence. Only when they stop squawking at each other do the two rivals realise Ox has gained an advantage. Quickly, Bill drowns out the competition. Young Sinbad still has a lot to learn. While Sinbad struggles, Ox is already moving on to the next part of the performance. It's the high-pitched chinging that helps females pinpoint a male's location. But nobody chings better than Bill. Aware that romance is in the air, the team are trying to follow the females.
Well, she's dropped away on us, eh?
There's usually only one reason why a female kakapo would leave her home range. Her signal is coming from somewhere near the summit. This is Rakiura, and she's heading for our 3 males on the hilltop. The interesting thing about her is she's Bill's daughter. It would be a disaster if Rakiura picked her father. Incestuous inbreeding could further poison the gene pool. And Bill is more than ready to mate with anything. Luckily, his uncontrollable sex drive is directed at his data logger. It's down to Ox and Sinbad. Sinbad's heard Bill and Ox chinging, and now tries it for himself. Rakiura listens. But Rakiura is drawn further uphill toward Ox. Sinbad's missed out. All he can do is listen, as for the first time in history, the mystery of Kakapo mating is revealed. Rakiura is just visible through the scrub, and Ox is clearly delighted to have a visitor. For 40 minutes, Ox and Rakiura consummate their relationship. The data logger confirms the liaison.
Here we are. Ox. This scares that Rakiura is not far away. She's just on the hill up here. She's a young bird, 2002, so if it's her, it could be quite interesting.
But Ox is not the only one having sexy time. In just a few days, 6 females mate 14 times. Multiple matings, even with Stewart Island males, greatly enhance fertility, perhaps giving poor sperm more of a chance. But in the past it's been incredibly rare. The data loggers suggest that only one of the 6 females that mated has failed to return for a top-up. It's the perfect opportunity to use artificial insemination to simulate a second mating and ensure fertile eggs. Meet Ruth. Her next date's with Juan Blanco. It's 2 years since Juan's first visit. Hopefully this time he'll be able to inseminate Ruth with sperm from a Fiordland bird. The team set off in search of a donor. With Richard Henry out of action, they turn to his young son, Sinbad.
Feathers a little bit. As you said, he's not booming every day, so.
a few blood cells, and one immature sperm.
Sinbad is still too young.
Unfortunately, Richard Henry didn't boom, which means we couldn't collect semen from him. That is a real disappointment, and neither could we collect it from either of his sons.
Since the Fiordland genes are out of reach, the team goes searching for the best of the Stewart Island birds. But will they get the 20 million sperm they need to ensure fertilisation?
Yeah.
The feet. The tail down. That's a good sign.
Good sign. Yeah.
Wonderful. Very concentrated. This is very, very thick, so it sticks to the walls of the vagina, to the oviduct, and this is the ideal thing.
And she won't be able to get rid of it. Yeah.
Right. It's not a matter of volume, it's a matter of concentration. Maybe you hurry up and have a look. If you have many, you can do them.
There's heaps. Just covered. It's so many. There's billions.
For other species, it's said that you need at least 20 million sperm to try to make sure. So we have more than that by now. I mean, all this is theoretical. It has never been done. So we'll see what's the result. But I'm very happy.
Ruth's up next. She's about to become the world's first artificially inseminated kakapo. But she has a surprise in store for Juan. The procedure looks like a complete success, but Juan's not happy.
Kakapo is very rare vagina, very rare. She should be more swollen. I suppose, I'm not sure. I mean, these guys, who knows, maybe normal that they lay not having the cloaca very swollen or with a lot of vascularization. They may be different. But I don't think so. I think when they're about to lay, everything should be very swollen.
Juan's instincts are correct. Ruth's not in breeding condition. There's no way she's laying eggs. It didn't take long to find out what had gone wrong.
We subsequently found that she hadn't in fact mated at all, and the record that we had on our data logger was a false one. So I guess it must have been quite a mystifying experience for Ruth.
It's difficult not to feel sorry for her. Two weeks later, Ox and Sinbad have given up, but Bill is still holding out. He's boomed his heart out every night for nearly 3 months. The season's over, and he's exhausted. But down in the valley, his daughter is just getting started. Rakiura is one of 5 females that did mate this year. The team have already discovered the nests belonging to the other females, and they all contain fertile eggs. Rakiura's is the last to check. If her eggs are fertile, it'll be the first time in recorded history a breeding season has achieved 100% fertility. Having waited for Rakiura to leave the nest, the team checked the eggs using highly specialised equipment. A ski pole and a T-strainer.
It's just little because it's the first time she's laid. Now I have to turn the light off. You can just see its yolk.
Although we can only see its yolk, the first egg is fertile. It's a great result, both for the first-time mum Rakiura and the Kakapo recovery team.
2 females that bred this year are only 6 years old, and they were hatched in 2002. And that means that all females that were hatched in 2002 are potentially sexually mature and capable of breeding, which means that instead of just having 21 adult females, we now have 38 adult females.
The radio receiver's getting louder. Rakiura's on her way home. It's time to go. The young mum is monitored using an infrared camera in the nest. The team's intrusion has gone unnoticed, and Rakiura settles down, keeping her eggs warm in the cold codfish night. But the team can't afford to relax. The fertile eggs, all from Stewart Island parents, lack genetic diversity. They're still vulnerable. Indeed, within 4 weeks, 3 eggs have died. What's more, the weather turns unseasonably cold. This is Lisa, an older female. As she heads off to find food, she leaves behind this year's first chick. But its survival is not guaranteed. Its lack of genetic diversity means it's more susceptible to disease. From now on, it'll receive a nightly health check. A manhole in the side of the nest allows for easy access.
Is that all he does? Pretty much. That's all he does. Yeah.
For the next 3 months, this chick will be totally dependent on its mother for food. The team will weigh it every night to make sure it's healthy and getting enough to eat.
That's good. 41, eh?
41 grams is a good weight. 30 minutes after the team have left, Lisa returns. Her first instinct is to warm her chick. Once warm, it's time for dinner. While adults can survive on a range of plant material, the chicks depend on regurgitated remu fruit. But outside, the remu crop is failing. Temperatures remain low, and the remu fruit doesn't ripen. This year's breeding season is turning sour. And tonight there's even more to worry about. Lisa has just left her nest.
Codfish base from Lisa's nest. It looks really, really lifeless. Yeah, I really don't think it's alive, but I'm going to bring it down for you now. Over. Its belly looked really sort of distended, and the crop to me didn't look quite right either.
I guess it's all
The curse had struck.
stuff a bit.
Although the exact cause of death is uncertain, the team need to take action. The surviving eggs on the island are at risk. Without intervention, the next generation of Kakapo may die. All the remaining eggs on the island are collected, including Rakiura's. They're both still alive. Warm and safe in an incubator, they can continue to grow. When they hatch, the chicks will be hand-reared, protected from the perils of Codfish Island. But the run of bad luck is not over. It's Bill. With no obvious sign of injury, it looks like old age has taken its toll. He has indeed boomed his heart out. At least the half-chewed rata leaf suggests his death was quick and painless. The team worked quickly to preserve his body before sending him off the island to be autopsied. All that remains is his radio transmitter. Bill's unexpected death seems to highlight the need to collect and store sperm from all male kakapo. With the new techniques for artificial insemination, even in death, males can continue to play a part in the breeding program. Sadly, the team were unable to get a good sample from Bill. But Bill's legacy lives on. For the last hour, a tiny chipping sound has been coming from Rakiura's first egg. As the father of Rakiura, Bill's the grandfather of her chicks. The team call the first to hatch Mokapuna, Maori for grandchild. But even she wasn't safe from the curse. And a few days after this was filmed, she died. Six chicks survived the 2008 breeding season. But that's not the end of our story. There's a natural twist to the end of this unnatural tale. For the last 4 years, the Kakapo recovery team had been working to incorporate Sinbad's genes into the Kakapo population. They didn't realise that Bill had been doing the same thing. He had shown Sinbad exactly what was required from an adult male Kakapo. All Sinbad needed was an opportunity. 2009 is tipped to be the biggest breeding season ever on Codfish Island, and Bill's prime real estate is vacant. It's the opportunity Sinbad has been waiting for. New territory comes new confidence, and he finally mated.
Te